All right, hey, Shalom. I want to begin by giving all glory and praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rechak, Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopefully elect. And Shalom to all the Akim pushing this truth with sincerity. It's your brother Atazawan from the GMS Columbus branch coming back again with another video. Through the Spirit, Lord's will is edifying. And pretty much today, I just want to touch upon the 70-year prophecy concerning the besieging of Jerusalem, and just tap into some history through the Spirit. We were going over Daniel, the first chapter, and through the Spirit, I just wanted to touch on it, make sure dates, etc. were correct, and just dive into it, because, we just tapped into it, via the Spirit. And, then, we went into it, heavily in the Spirit, but, when you're dealing with history, understanding dates, times, maps, etc., it kind of, it can get confusing. And in some regards, sometimes you may trip up on them, etc. So just for edification, I just wanted to dive into it and make sure all the information, is correct, going into it. Okay. Now, one thing we have to understand, through the Spirit is that the 70-year prophecy concerning the nation of Israel being besieged by ultimately Nebuchadnezzar, was prophesied about via Jeremiah the prophet, and pretty much, he was forewarning them, how ultimately, we will be taken, and serve captivity in that land, and primarily, the upper echelon of the nation of Israel, in particular, the southern tribes were taken, and to serve in, the grasp of the king of Babylon, But real quick, let's just type into the 70-year prophecy and get some dates, because pretty much, let's see what this footnote brings up. Yep, this occurred pretty much in 605 I said 80 BC, and understanding, that ultimately when you go into history, in the past, it ultimately counts down, and now that we're in AD, which is Anno Domini, it counts up, because, pretty much things were refreshed, once Yahweh Shai hit the scene, the Savior, the Messiah. That's why everybody knows through the Spirit that, there is an anointed out there, which his name is Yahweh Shai, Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. But anyways, let's jump into it. This is Jeremiah, the 25th chapter, starting at the top. I'm going to go NLT. It says, this message for all the people of Judah came to Jeremiah from Yahweh during the 4th year of Jehoiakim's reign over Judah. This was the year when King Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon began his reign, right? Because who was the king prior to Nebuchadnezzar was Nebuchadnezzar. All right, real quick, I had him pulled up. Like I said, just diving into some things. Nebuchadnezzar, however you pronounce this man's name, or Nabopolassar. All right, real quick overview on him. It says, was the founder of the first king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, ruling from his coronation as king of Babylon in 1666, right? And, that was pretty much the beginning of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, to his death in 605 BC, right? And, in that, Nebuchadnezzar II, came up and began his conquest. In the beginning of his conquest, he sought to take down and besiege Jerusalem. And securing the independency of Babylonia, Nebuchadnezzar's uprising against the Neo-Assyrian Empire, right? Because although we understand that, some of those Babylonians were Cushites, the true Babylonians, are also Assyrians in a sense. They rebelled, all right, or began an uprising, when the Assyrians were in power, which had ruled Babylonia for more than a century, eventually led to this complete destruction of the Assyrian Empire and the rise of the Neo-Babylonian Empire in its place. All right. So he was born 658 BC. All right, died 605 BC. Okay. And this is where you get the beginning or the conquest of Nebuchadnezzar II. It says, verses 2 NLT, it says, Jeremiah the prophet said to all the people in Judah and Jerusalem, for the past 23 years, from the 13th year of the reign of Josiah, son of Ammon, king of Judah, until now, Yahweh has been giving me his messages. I have faithfully passed them on to you, but you have not listened. Again and again, Yahweh has sent you his servants, the prophets, but you have not listened or even paid attention, right? And you go through Jeremiah, you know, he was warning the people from a young man, okay, until he got up in age, or just grew in age, okay, and through that, you know, he seen different kings, you know, come and raised up, and he beheld the sins of Israel. You know how ultimately the southern tribes were dealing with idolatry, you know, so on and so forth. Okay, and ultimately it resulted in the Lord being angry, and now in this point, you know, prophesying about their downfall and how they would serve captivity under the Babylonians. You know how the temple will be sacked, you know, etc. And you know this goes into as well the first, like I said, the first time the temple was sacked. Okay. It reads verse 5, it says, each time the message was this, turn from the evil road you are traveling and from the evil things you are doing. Only then will I let you live in this land that Yahweh gave to you and your ancestors forever. Do not provoke my anger by worshiping idols you made with your own hands. Then I will not harm you. But you will not listen to me, says Yahweh. You made me furious by worshiping idols you made with your own hands, bringing on yourselves all the disasters you now suffer. And now Yahweh of heaven's army says, because you have not listened to me, I will gather together all the armies of the north under King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, whom I have appointed as my deputy, or as it says in the KJV, my servant. I will bring them all against this land and its people and against the surrounding nations. I will completely destroy you and make you an object of horror and contempt and a ruin forever, right? And that's what had happened. Okay, let's get a little history. Let's go to 2 Kings 24. And let's go to let's start at because you know it's a vast history, man. Let's start at 5. This is 2 Kings 24 and 5. It says, now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiakim his son reigned in his stead. And the king of Egypt came not again anymore out of his land, for the king of Babylon had taken from the river of Egypt unto the river of Euphrates all that pertained to the king of Egypt. Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem three months. And his mother's name was Nahashta, and daughter of Elthan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that his fathers had done. At that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city, and his servants did besiege it. And Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants and his princes and his officers, and the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign. And he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of Yahweh, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon king of Israel had made in the temple of Yahweh, as Yahweh had said. And he carried away all Jerusalem, all the princes and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained save the poorest sort of the people of the land, right? And then, you tie all that in to Daniel, the first chapter, okay? Concerning, Daniel, Mishael, Azariah, and Hananiah, all right? You see how it all links. And pretty much, diving into it further, when you tap into it, like I said, around 605 BC, was that beginning of that conquest of Nebuchadnezzar. All right. It lasted until what? Around 538 BC. All right. Concerning, once Cyrus the Great came into power. Okay. Let's go back to Jeremiah, the 25th chapter, and read some more. All right. So we could get more understanding. Where we at? Where we at? 10. It says, I will take away your happy singing and laughter. The joyful voices of bridegrooms and brides will no longer be heard. Your millstone will fall silent, and the lights in your homes will go out. The entire land will become a desolate wasteland. Israel and her neighboring lands will serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. You see, that 70-year prophecy concerning, like I said, the Israelites being in captivity from 605 BC to around about 538, 539 BC, when the Babylonian Empire ultimately was halted and taken down via Cyrus the Great. Okay? And in that, the Lord had mercy, because through Cyrus the Great, we had got the decree to rebuild the temple. Matter of fact, let me keep reading, then we'll get that in Ezra. It says, 13, I will bring upon them all the terrors I have promised in this book, all the penalties announced by Jeremiah against the nations. Many nations and great kings will enslave the Babylonians just as they enslaved my people. I will punish them in proportion to the suffering they cause my people, right? So that's the balance. The Lord, although he used these nations as a whooping stick, he in the midst, are going to judge them as well, and did ultimately. Like I said, ultimately, their kingdom was taken down as well. Okay. Let me see. Okay, that's pretty much the point. Now, let's jump to Ezra, the first chapter at the top. Ezra 1 at the top, NLT. It says, in the first year of King Cyrus of Persia, Yahweh fulfilled the prophecy he had given through Jeremiah. He stirred the heart of Cyrus to put this proclamation in writing and send it throughout his kingdom. This is what King Cyrus of Persia says. Yahweh, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth. He has appointed me to build him a temple at Jerusalem, which is in Judah, right? And going to show you, man, that like the scriptures say, man's goings are of the Lord. The Lord also, he calls Cyrus his anointed, okay? And used this heathen, ultimately to reestablish the temple, etc. in Jerusalem, man. Okay? And not to say that this man's going to be saved or he's of the elect or none of that, but going to show you that ultimately the Lord, he works on the minds of the people, man. Okay? And swayed this man's spirit to have compassion upon the nation. And ultimately had to, Cyrus had to acknowledge that this is the God of the heavens, man. Okay? Verses 3. Any of you who are his people may go to Jerusalem and Judah to rebuild this temple, right? Because, he had conquered the Babylonian Empire. So he put out this decree like, y'all can go back. Y'all can go and rebuild. Some went and established those things, and some remained. You know, because what you down the line had Xerxes who came into power. Okay, and they were all fighting over that land. That was once Assyria, once Assyria, once and down the line the Medo Persians or the Medes, the Persians, that area over there going more east towards Asia. It says, "Who lives in Jerusalem, and may your God be with you. Wherever this Jew remnant is found, let their neighbors contribute toward their expenses by giving them silver and gold and supplies for the journey and livestock, as well as voluntary offering for the temple of the Most High in Jerusalem." Then the Most High stirred the hearts of the priests and the Levites and leaders of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin to go to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple of Yahweh, right? And this was the beginning of the rebuilding of the temple. And this was around, had to be 539, 538 BC when, let's see, it might tell us. When Cyrus is in the power, right? You see, this all links up. And it links with Jeremiah the 29th chapter as well. Yep, 538 BC, you see? All right. So, like I said, just wanted to tap into the dates, etc., concerning, the 70-year prophecy, so on and so forth. Let's keep reading. And all their neighbors assisted by giving them articles of silver and gold, supplies for the journey, and livestock. They gave them many valuable gifts in addition to all the voluntary offerings. King Cyrus himself brought out the articles the king that King Nebuchadnezzar had taken from Yahweh's temple in Jerusalem, and had placed them in the temple of his own gods. Cyrus directed Mithredath, the treasurer of Persia, to count these items and present them to Sheshbazzar, the leader of the exiles returning to Judah. This is a list of the items that were returned: gold basins 30, silver basins 1,000, silver incense burners 29, gold bowls 30, silver bowls 410, other items 1,000. And all there were 5,400 articles of gold and silver. Sheshbazzar brought all of these along with the exiles, went from Babylon to Jerusalem, right? You see? So that pretty much in a nutshell was that 70 years being fulfilled from 605 to 538 BC. Just short, just a little bit with a couple years, over 70 years, but in a nutshell, 70 years, man. Okay? So yeah, that's pretty much the point. Okay, and like I said, when you go into the history, you go into the beginning of that in Daniel, the first chapter. Okay, dealing with that. Okay, and I believe right shortly after this time, let me see, it says during the 3rd year of King Jehoiakim's reign in Judah, right, which his son was Jehoiakim, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. It says Yahweh gave him victory over King Jehoiakim of Judah and permitted him to take some of the sacred objects from the temple of the Most High. So Nebuchadnezzar took them back to the land of Babylonia and placed them in the treasure house of his God, right? And Cyrus knew that and had record of that, and ultimately returned those things, or majority of those things, back to the Israelites so they can rebuild. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much the point, man. I ain't gonna draw it out too much. I just want to tap into some of that through the spirit. And like I said, just make sure Jake jumping into that history and going back into it, because it's a lot, man. Remembering names and going into it real quick and connecting it. I want to read this too. There's some good stuff here too. This is 2 Chronicles 36, 5 NLT, it says Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 11 years. He did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh his God. Then King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to Jerusalem and captured it, and he bound Jehoiakim in bronze chains and led him away to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also took some of the treasures from the temple of Yahweh, and he placed them in his palace in Babylon. The rest of the events of Jehoiakim's reign include all the evil things he did, and everything found against him are recorded in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. Then his son Jehoiakim became the next king. Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months and 10 days. And Jehoiakim did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh's sight. In the spring of the year, King Nebuchadnezzar took Jehoiakim to Babylon. Many treasures from the temple of Yahweh were also taken to Babylon at the time, and Nebuchadnezzar installed Jehoiakim's uncle Zedekiah, or his brother, all right, Zedekiah, as the king in Judah and in Jerusalem. Let's just get some little quick read on Zedekiah. So pretty much he set Zedekiah up as a puppet king, so to speak. This is the last king of Judah, renamed from Mattaniah by Nebuchadnezzar, son of Josiah, the wife of Hamutal, placed on the throne by Nebuchadnezzar when he carried his nephew Jehoiakim in captivity. Khan. All right, so that's pretty much the point through the spirit. All right. Like I said, just tying those dates in, etc. The fuck is this shit? Fucking random ass shit on YouTube. Anyways, that's it, man. Through the spirit, I just wanted to tap into that. Lord's will bring some more information out on it, and just keep doing what we do, man. Through the spirit. Call Haloyam La Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rakakodah Shalom.